This is In the Circle on Fast Pitch News.
And we welcome you to the final D2 Tuesday of the regular season. Conference tournament set to start. Bids have already been given out for the field of 64. We're going to talk about all of that on this final edition of D2 Tuesday of the regular season. Anyway, my name is Victor Anderson. Thank you so much for listening to this rendition and version of D2 Tuesday here on our Inner Circle YouTube page. Don't forget to turn on your notifications and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will be live Monday morning starting at 9:30 as we watch along the Division II selection show. I will give my final thoughts on how the regionals will look going into Selection Monday this weekend. Be on the lookout for that on our In the Circle social media accounts. And we will find out together who will be in the field of 64 and who will be hosting the various roads to get to Chattanooga, Tennessee. So we're going to do D2 Tuesday a little bit different today. The national rankings are out. Tampa's still number one. National rankings, not that big of a deal at this point of the season. We're going to talk about regions. We're going to talk about all 8 regions on this D2 Tuesday, and we will have timestamps so that way you can know if we're talking about your region and your particular conference, which section of the episode you will need to go to. That will be available on our In the Circle SB Twitter page. So we're going to start from the West region and move our way across the country. So in the West region, coming into this week, and again, we know the final regular season regional rankings will be coming out tomorrow. I'll be talking about that at great length on our Thursday episode. Going into the conference tournaments, Concordia is number 1, Simona State number 2, San Bernardino, Dominguez Hills, San Marcos round out the top 5, Northwest Nazarene 6, San Francisco State 7, Biola 8, Azusa Pacific 9, Cal State Monterey Bay 10. The conference I want to focus on out west is the CCAA. There are 2 important reasons I'm bringing up the CCAA. Number 1, I referenced San Francisco State being at number 7. They failed to qualify for the CCAA tournament. They missed out by 1 game, did the Gators. They're 27-23 overall. They're 15-19 in the CCAA. They are out of the conference tournament because they didn't qualify. That has them in a very precarious position come Selection Monday, so the Gators will have to sweat it out. The important game for the CCAA is going to be that second winner stays, loser is out game between Cal State Dominguez Hills, who serves as the host at Toro Diamond, and Monterey Bay in a 4-5 matchup. That'll be at 2:30 Pacific time in Carson, 5:30 Eastern time. Dominguez Hills comes in as the number 4 team in the region. Dominguez Hills, I feel even if they lose that game, they will be safe in the regional rankings. If you're Monterey Bay, you need a deep run. Right now, they come in at number 10. If they beat Dominguez Hills, they would advance potentially as the 4 seed because they reseed after the 2 elimination games on Wednesday. Cal State San Marcos playing Chico State in the other elimination game, 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. The lower seeded team will take on the top seed Simona State. And then the second team will take on Cal State San Bernardino. If you're Chico State, you have to win the tournament to make the field. Cut and dry, no sugarcoating it. Chico State has to win the tournament to get into the tournament. Monterey Bay, if they beat Dominguez Hills and then they beat Simona State, maybe they get into the final for them to have a shot. They would definitely jump over San Francisco State, potentially. But San Francisco State's at number 7. It's going to be a very anxious selection Monday for San Francisco State at that number 7 spot. Now, I mentioned that because Biola and Azusa Pacific, they will be participating in the first ever Pac-West tournament, which Biola will be hosting. Concordia Irvine is the number 1 seed. If Biola or Azusa Pacific or Hawaii Pacific, who is the number 4 seed, if one of those other 3 schools outside of Concordia make the tournament, they're automatically in. Plain and simple. Concordia, if they win the tournament, they will all but lock up being the number 1 seed. I think even if they lose in the conference final, let's say to a Biola, I think Crystal Rosendahl and company has done enough to get the number 1 seed. But if Simona State looks strong in the CCAA, they likely have the chance to get that number 1 seed in the West. I think those two are going to be hosting right now in the West. We'll see how those respective tournaments play out in my projections. That'll be coming out Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. Let's now go to the South Central region. Now, the South Central region comprises of only 2 leagues. This is the only of the 8 regions in Division II that has 2 regions, the Lone Star Conference and the RMAC. Now, the Lone Star had a true round-robin regular season where all conference members played each other. Texas Tyler won their 3rd straight regular season championship, and as a result, they will be the host of the conference tournament that will be taking place. Now, in the Lone Star Conference, because there's a lot on the line with the Lone Star, Texas Tyler will take on and it's a single elimination tournament, so you win in advance, you lose and go home. They will await the winner of the 8-9 matchup between Angelo State and St. Edwards. Angelo State is number 9 in the regional rankings. St. Edwards is at number 7. The winner of that game, I feel confident, could make the field. St. Edwards doesn't need it as much, possibly, as Angelo State does. Angelo State will likely have to beat St. Edwards and beat Texas Tyler on that Thursday at Irwin Ballpark in Tyler to get themselves into that top 8. By the way, St. Mary's and Eastern New Mexico. By the way, congratulations to the Greyhounds of Eastern New Mexico making it to the Lone Star Conference tournament for the first time in a long time. The winner of that will take on West Texas A&M in the next to last game of the day on that Thursday. You got Lubbock. Yeah, mentioned Cameron. Cameron is the number 8 team in the region. They take on Lubbock Christian in a 4-5 matchup. And Oklahoma Christian takes on Texas A&M Kingsville in the 3-6 matchup on Friday. They'll play the other 2 quarterfinals and the semifinals on Friday. And then, weather permitting, knock on wood, championship game will be taking place on Saturday afternoon. Now, with the South Central, if Texas Tyler and West Texas A&M take care of their respective business and they meet in a conference championship game, whoever wins the conference tournament, in my opinion, will be the 1 seed. Whoever loses will be the 2. Cut and dry, plain and simple as that. Now, in the RMAC, Colorado Christian, they're in no matter what. They're the number 3 seed. They're number 3 in the region. Metro State has to win the conference tournament. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you're Metro State or anyone else in the RMAC, you have to win. Metro State will take on the winner of the 3-6 matchup, which will be between Regis and Shattering State. Colorado Christian, the regular season champions, they will take on the winner of Colorado School of Mines and Colorado Mesa. Championship day will be on Saturday, May the 6th. That'll be taking place in Lakewood. So that's your situation with the South Central. You're listening to D2 Tuesday on the In the Circle YouTube page. Victor Anderson with you. Just giving my outlook on the regions as we go into conference tournaments. The Midwest. Now, in the Midwest, I'm going to take a look at the GLVC. That's the Great Lakes Valley Conference. Now, U of Indy are the regular season champions. They will be the number 1 seed. U of Indy, they're battling. They're the number 1 seed in the Midwest. So, as long as they don't stumble in the conference tournament, And I think even if they do, I think they've done enough to get the number 1 seed. My focus here in the GLVC is going to be Illinois Springfield, Maryville, and those other schools. Now, coming into this past week, now again, the regional rankings will come out tomorrow, so everything that I say in this episode will have some significance, some increase, some decreasing based on the regional rankings that'll be coming out tomorrow afternoon. So when you're listening to this and you see the new regional rankings, take what I say with however many grains of salt you so desire. Illinois Springfield, they are the number 4 ranked team in the region. Maryville, they are ranked number 7 in the region. They play the opening game of the GLVC tournament Thursday morning in East Peoria, Illinois. That's 10 a.m. local time. Missouri St. Louis, they take on Rockhurst at 3 p.m. And then McKendree at Lewis, they play at 5:30. McKendree, they are the number 6 seed. They're number 6 in the region. Lewis, they are the 9th seed. They're the number 9 ranked team in the region. If you're McKendree, you probably have to go to the semifinals to be really, really secure your positioning in the Midwest region. Because they got U of Indy, they take on Drury to start their tournament. Missouri St. Louis mentioned they're the 2 seed. They take on Rockhurst. Double elimination format, championship game, weather permitting, Sunday afternoon at 3 p.m. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, they do the little swap in terms of the brackets. They had the crossover like the Division I Women's College World Series had for many, many years before they kind of eliminated that. But if you're a GLVC team, if you're U of Indy, as long as you don't stub your toe, go 0-2 barbecue, you're going to be likely the number 1 seed. If you're Illinois Springfield, if you make it to the semifinals, you'll be fine. McKendree, it'd be best if you avoid going 0-2 barbecue. Lewis, you're going to need some wins. Maryville, you're going to need a win. Everyone else, you're going to likely need to win the conference tournament to get yourself into the field of 64. Now we go to the Central Region. Last year, the Central Region was the region that had the most intrigue, and the conference that we're going to talk about had all of the intrigue. We're referring to the MIAA. Central Oklahoma swept the doubleheader on the final weekend of the regular season versus Missouri Southern, won it on a walk-off fielder's choice, and got themselves the regular season championship and the number 1 seed. So the Bronchos got the 1 seed. Missouri Southern is the 2. Rogers State, they are the 3. Going into the regional rankings, that was the order. Central Oklahoma, Missouri Southern, Rogers State. Now, if you recall last year in the MIAA tournament, it was Washburn who was the 1, Central Oklahoma was the 2, Rogers State was the 3. Central Oklahoma was in position to be the number 1 seed. Washburn was battling as well. Washburn lost in the conference final to Rogers State. Central Oklahoma lost their opening game, couldn't battle out of the losers bracket. Ironically enough, they lost to Missouri Western in extra ratings 5-4. Those combination of factors propelled Rogers State to the number 1 seed. They got to host the regionals. They hosted Central Oklahoma in the Supers, knocked off the Bronchos, and then Andrea Vaughn and company went on to take home the first ever national championship. Could we see something potentially similar this go round? With the way the MIAA came down to the final pitch of the regular season versus Central Oklahoma and Missouri Southern, it would not surprise me in the slightest. Central Oklahoma starts their run versus Fort Hays State. That comes up tomorrow. Central Missouri takes on Washburn. Missouri Southern takes on Poyer State. Rogers State takes on Missouri Western. Now, what that means is that if the seeds hold serve, Missouri Southern will play Rogers State in the upper bracket on that Thursday at 6:30 local time. Whichever of those two teams gets further in the tournament will likely get the number 2 seed. Or if there's a repeat of last year where Central Oklahoma, presuming they take care of business versus Fort Hays State, we thought that would take the case last year. Now, Central Oklahoma last year was the 2. They lost to Nebraska Kearney 4-3. They fell in the losers bracket, had to beat Missouri Southern, but lost before they lost to Missouri Western. Central Oklahoma, the Bronchos, with 5 first-team All-MIAA players, if they can get themselves to the championship game, the Bronchos will be the 1 seed in the Central. In my humble opinion, that's how I think it's gonna work. It's gonna be 2 of those 3: Central Oklahoma, Missouri Southern, or Rogers State. Whichever 2 of the 3 does the best in MIAA, those will be the 2 teams that will be hosting regionals next weekend. What that ranking will be, it remains to be seen. Now, Washburn, they're number 7. I referenced Washburn. They have an opening round matchup versus Central Missouri. If you're Washburn, you will love to beat the Jennies in the opening round. And then if you beat Central Oklahoma, get yourself to the semifinals, you probably assure yourself some more breathing room come Selection Monday. Missouri Western, they're going to need to have a great run to start off with the defending national champions as the 6th seed in that 3-6 matchup on Wednesday. Everyone else in the MIAA, again, have to win the tournament to get yourself a bid to the NCAAs. So we are down 4 regions. We got 4 more regions to go. Let's go now to the Southeast. First and foremost, my congratulations. And if I had a hat right now, I would tip it. My congratulations to the Patriots of Francis Marion, who were the number 3 seed and battled their way back and took home the Conference Carolinas Championship. So Francis Marion will be guaranteed a spot at the table of the NCAA Division II Softball Championships. They took a 10-4 win over top-seeded King. It is the first ever softball conference title in the Division II era. They led 4-2 going to the bottom of the 7th. King scored twice off a Carly Turner home run to force extra innings. But Reagan Glantz had a home run, and they poured it on with a 6-run 9th inning. And congratulations again to Francis Marion and tournament MVP Rachel Davis to pick up the victory 10-4 and go to 41-11 on the season. And they will be in the NCAA D2 tournament. We'll see where their name will be called coming up on Monday morning. The big story is the Peach Belt. If you listened to my D2 Tuesday last week, I talked about the Peach Belt with the 2 brackets. Columbus State on one side as a regular season champion, North Georgia on the other side. Columbus State held up their end of the bargain, knocking off a very scrappy Lander team. That's a team to keep an eye out on in 2024. And North Georgia had to battle out of the losers bracket. But they did. But now we set up the showdown. North Georgia, Columbus State to get the Peach Belt automatic bid to the tournament. Now, both teams are going to get in. And I feel with their body of work that North Georgia will be hosting. The question is, and I brought this up last week and I want to bring it up again because it is going to be happening. If Columbus State beats North Georgia, double dips, gets the regular season and the conference tournament title, and they will also have 4 wins against the top-ranked team in the region, will that be enough to get them to the number 2 seed? And, hey, let's throw it out there. It's our last D2 Tuesday of the regular season. Let's just throw it out there. If Columbus State does that, 4 wins against North Georgia, they double dip, Peach Belt regular season tournament champions. Will that be enough for them to jump the Nighthawks and be the number 1 seed in the Southeast? It's possible. I honestly don't know if it will happen in terms of if they beat North Georgia, that'll make that jump from 4 to 1, number one. That's why tomorrow's regional rankings are going to be so important. Because what I'm saying now, combined with the regional rankings, will determine if that probability increases. So if North Georgia and Columbus State is a battle between number 1 and number 3 in the region, and if Columbus State beats North Georgia, it's possible. It's certainly possible. We will have to see where Columbus State is in the regional rankings when they come out tomorrow afternoon. And definitely we will break that down on Thursday's episode of In the Circle. 3 more regions to go. Let's talk about the South. Now, the South region, Tampa punched their official ticket to the NCAA tournament. They are the Sunshine State Conference champions. Congratulations to Coach Cantor and company. They took 2 out of 3 versus St. Leo, who was the number 2 ranked team in the region. So Tampa is in officially as the Sunshine State Conference champions. They were co-champs last year versus Nova Southeastern, but Nova Southeastern got the automatic bid. Tampa gets it all for themselves. No sharing with anybody. Tampa probably with the win, as long as they don't stub their toe versus Lynn, Tampa will be the number 1 seed in the South. The number 2 seed now comes into play because of the Gulf South tournament. Alabama Huntsville, who won the regular season championship in the GSC, they are the number 1 seed. And tournament play will start tomorrow in Alabama. Now, Alabama Huntsville will take on West Florida in their opening round game. Mississippi College is the 2 seed. They will take on Union. West Alabama in the 3-6 will take on Montevallo. And you got a very intriguing 4-5 matchup. Auburn Montgomery versus Valdosta State. The regional rankings coming into this week at Valdosta State number 4, Auburn Montgomery number 8. And for those of you who have been following us and following me talking Division II, the South region, more than any other region, is important to be in the top 7 because the SIAC champion, that's the conference of the HBCUs, the winner of that conference will be slotted in as the number 8 seed. So right now, Auburn Montgomery is on the outside looking in. Now, let's say Auburn Montgomery, who are the reigning defending 2-time tournament champs, oh, by the way, let's say they beat Valdosta State, and then they go in the winner's bracket, and they knock off Alabama Huntsville, and let's say AUM advances to the Gulf South Championship game. That might be enough for AUM to get in the tournament. Who would that be bad news for? Could potentially be bad news for West Alabama, who's the number 7 seed. West Alabama, I referenced, they start their tournament versus Montevallo. You do not want to lose your opening round game when you have that little margin for error. If you're West Alabama, you win that game, you set up a matchup with Mississippi College. The Lady Choctaws, ever since I started talking about them in early March, the nation has started to come around. Wayne Cavaldi, D2 specialist extraordinaire, in his latest article on NCAA.com, highlighted Mississippi College as one of the 8 teams who can make a run to the D2 championship finals. Well, when you have an offense like they do, with 57 home runs collectively, you have a very strong pitching staff that doesn't have to do too much. Oh, by the way, they've scored 408 runs this year. That's top 5 in the nation. And Cameron Bailey, 22-4 with a 2.35 ERA. And the turnaround that they've had, they went 22-23 last year. Now 40-8, rising up again in the D2 rankings. It's going to be a very fun team to watch. And I'll tell you what, I would love to see a Mississippi College, Alabama Huntsville Gulf South Conference Championship game. Now, I mentioned the Gulf. Now, with Alabama Huntsville, because of St. Leo taking a game versus Tampa, they end the season versus Rollins. If Alabama Huntsville makes it to the Gulf South Conference Championship game, that might be enough to jump Aaron Kimberger's crew to the 2 seed. You can make the case also for Valdosta State. If Mississippi College does it, they can also do it. So the winner of the Gulf South tournament, and I'll put it in order of who could be the number 2 seed over St. Leo. Huntsville has the best chance. I will then say Mississippi College has the second best chance, and then Valdosta State third. I only say Valdosta State because St. Leo and Valdosta State, when they played at a doubleheader, they split. Now, granted, that was at University Softball Stadium on the St. Leo campus back in March, but we have to give credence to that. If you're West Alabama, if you win a couple games at the tournament, you feel a lot better about your position. If you're Nova Southeastern and you're Julie Lemaire, you got to sweep and you got to hold for chalk to serve in the Gulf South. Because if Auburn Montgomery sneaks up and they steal a bid, they're going to be at least a 6. And now you're in that limbo. And if you watched our watch along on Monday, I highlighted what happened with Rollins in 2013. Rollins came into the final regional rankings as the number 6 ranked team. They had a winning week, but then Selection Monday comes around, and Barry, who was on the outside looking in, jumped over the Tars. The Buccaneers got in, and the Tars got left out. Speaking of the team, I'm about to talk about this segue, folks. The head coach of the Tars back in 2013 was Michelle Frew. A decade later, Michelle Frew is leading Charleston in the Atlantic region. See what I did there. And now Charleston has an opportunity in the Mountain East to punch their ticket to the NCAA tournament. Charleston, they won the South Division Championship and will come into the tournament as the number 1 seed in the South. They would take on the 4 seed West Liberty on Friday. That will be taking place at the Borderdort Sports Complex. Now, with the tournament in the Mountain East, you got the top 4 teams in each division. You got the North and the South. So Charleston is the 1 seed in the South. Then you have West Virginia Wesleyan, Davidson Elkins, and Glenville State. Then you have in the North, you have Fairmont State, Notre Dame of Ohio, Frostburg State, and North Liberty. Now, that is important because West Virginia Wesleyan is 3rd in the Atlantic region as of the latest regional rankings. Charleston is 5th. Fairmont State is 6th. Notre Dame, Ohio is 8th. So if you're Notre Dame of Ohio, you need to beat Davis and Elkins, and you prefer to play Charleston in that second game of the day, which will take place at 5 o'clock. If you're Charleston, if you win your first 2 games on Friday, you're comfortably going to be in the field, without question. And what a story that would be if Charleston can get themselves into the NCAA tournament. The Golden Eagles, they lead the MEC in hitting with a .324 average. OPS almost at 900 with 247 RBIs. Charleston, by the way, one thing about Michelle Frew teams, they always know how to pitch. I would know. I had the honor of covering some of her teams for nearly a decade over at Rollins. 1.83 ERA. 307 strikeouts as a ball club. If Charleston gets in, they could be a very dangerous team. So if you're East Stroudsburg, if you're a Westchester, you do not want to see the Golden Eagles on your side of the regional draw. If you're West Virginia Wesleyan, you're going to comfortably be in. You're likely going to need to win the MEC if you want a shot to be a number 2 seed. Charleston, as long as you don't go 0-2 in barbecue, you'll be fine. Fairmont State. Fairmont State, They start their tournament as the number 1 seed in the North. They take on Glenville State, and then they will likely have a battle with West Virginia Wesleyan. So 2 of these 4 teams could potentially play each other Saturday afternoon with the spot in the championship game Sunday on the line. That is going to be some fascinating softball to watch over at the Beaufort Sports Complex for the Mountain East Championship Tournament. Now, if Charleston makes a run, don't be surprised if they creep up as a 3 seed. Don't be surprised if that happens. But we will certainly keep a lookout for that. Last but certainly not least, as we wrap up our regional look around, let us go now to the East region. Now, in the East, I feel confident that the Delphi, as long as they handle their business in the Northeast 10, will be the number 1 seed. But the conference I want to look at to wrap things up will be the CACC. Now, the CACC has Wilmington. Wilmington is the number 1 seed in the conference tournament. They are the number 2 seed. They're the number 2 ranked team in the region. Caldwell, who is the 2 seed in that region, they're at number 4. You got Georgian Court, Bridgeport, Felician, Holy Family, Bloomfield, and Goldie Beacom rounding out the 18th field there. Now, if you're Felician, if you're Holy Family, if you're Bloomfield, if you're Goldie Beacom, and we're throwing Bridgeport. Bridgeport is ranked number 10. If you're 4 through 8, you need to win the conference tournament to get the bid. Bridgeport, depending on what happens in the East Coast Conference and the any 10 Northeast 10, if you're Bridgeport, you're gonna have to win the tournament, because making a jump from 10 to 8 is not too crazy. But if St. Anselm wins enough tournament games, if Malloy wins their tournament, possibly Bridgeport will have some work cut out for them. Now, Georgian Court, I referenced, they're the 3 seed. They're 8th in the region coming into the conference tournament. And how the tournament works with the CACC is very unique. It is a doubleheader where the highest seeded team has to win once and the lower seeded team has to win both games of a doubleheader. So essentially, how they do it is that you treat it as if you're in the championship round. The higher seeded team is in the proverbial capper seat, and they have to be defeated twice in order for the lower seeded team to advance. So Wilmington is already advanced. They'll be playing on Thursday versus Bridgeport. And then Caldwell will be taking on and then Caldwell and Georgian Court will be playing as we speak. So as you're listening to this, we will find out what will be happening with those 2 tournaments. And then they go into the double elimination portion of the bracket. Championship game scheduled to be played at 11 a.m. on Saturday. If you're Caldwell, if you're Georgian Court, if you win, then you got a shot to play Wilmington potentially in the conference championship. Wilmington, I feel, as long as they win the conference tournament, as long as the fact that they took care of their business to advance to the double elimination portion of the bracket, as long as they don't stub their toe, if they beat Bentley to win the conference tournament, if they win the conference tournament, I think they will be the 2 easily. Now you got Caldwell, Georgian Court, as I referenced. If Caldwell wins the conference tournament, is that going to be if that includes beating Wilmington? Will that be enough for them to jump into the top 2, jumping over Bentley and Wilmington? That will remain to be seen. But that's just some of the conferences I'll be keeping my eye out on as we finish up D2 Tuesday. I'll be having some things I'll be working on throughout the conference tournaments that'll be taking place as of right now and throughout the weekend. And then Sunday afternoon, I will digest all the information, work on my top 8 regional teams, have that submitted either through our Twitter, maybe on Extra Inning Softball, and then we will all gathered together around your favorite streaming device. Monday morning, 9:30, Eric Lopez will join me. We may have some guests depending on how things work themselves out. And we will all watch along together the Division II Selection Show. Selection Monday is almost here, ladies and gentlemen. And we will know which 64 teams will be on the road to Chattanooga for the Division II National Championship Tournament. And on that note, that will wrap up this final regular season edition of D2 Tuesday. Our next D2 Tuesday, we're going to talk about all 16 regionals. Yes, you heard me. All 16 regionals will be discussed on our next D2 Tuesday. We may have some interviews in there as well. Just stay tuned. Of course, follow us on our social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Turn on your notifications. That way you don't miss any of the action that we got going on in Division 1, Division 2, other entities as well. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But with that being said, folks, that's going to wrap up this episode of D2 Tuesday. I'm Victor Anderson. Thank you so much for listening to us. I will talk to all of you Monday morning, bright and early, find out who will be the 64 teams selected to participate in this year's Division II tournament. Until then, you'll be listening to D2 Tuesday here on In the Circle. Good night, Canada.